Well, hi everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of the You Are Worthy Network. Now, normally, Steve is the one doing the interviews, right? He's doing these incredible interviews, bringing amazing guests, powerful stories of hope, of healing, and of purpose. But today, we are turning the tables because I get the total honor of being the one to interview Steve today. And for those of you who may be a little bit new to the community, Steve Warmer is the founder and the heartbeat behind the You Are Worthy Network, a place where leaders, where entrepreneurs, where everyday people can rediscover their worth, rebuild with purpose, and grow in gratitude. Steve has been a church leader for the last 15 years. He's also an author, a speaker, and a coach. And today, we're going to dive into Steve's personal journey. What inspired him to actually start this movement that we're all involved in? And where does he see it heading next? So I want you to grab your notebook, settle in, and get ready to hear the story behind the heart of the You Are Worthy Network. So, Steve, my brother, it is good to have you here on the other end of the mic.
Man, Jerry, good to be with you. Thank you for doing this today. I admit it's a little bit different in this seat, but I'm excited to be with you and to share anything I can to help folks today.
Well, I'm excited to have the honor to interview you, and I know people are anxious to know a little bit about your story. So I just thought we would dive in here. And so let's start off with this, okay? Before you launched the You Are Worthy Network, you spent years building and leading in many other areas of your life. So can you take a few minutes and share a little bit with the audience about that journey and how it eventually led you to create this incredible movement?
Sure. I mean, I've been, involved in different types of leadership for a number of years. You mentioned being a pastor for several years, and still am actually. Have the honor to lead a small church, a small but mighty church here in the Memphis, Tennessee area. Also, there's a nonprofit that my wife and I got involved with several years ago that now we're the directors of. It's called Hurt to Hope. So, just different types of leadership over the years. I was looking for, to be honest with you, to do a podcast, and I've had people mention to me quite a bit, you ought to start a podcast. And I had an idea for one. I'll get to that in a second. It was just like daunting for me to think about doing a podcast. And here's why, full-time job, nonprofit, still not even in this order, trying to have a good relationship with the Lord, my wife that I've been blessed to be married with for almost 30 years now, and then, three teenagers. It was like, do I have time for a podcast? I want to do it, but is it wise? And I'm not particularly great in the editing in the digital space. And I was like, there's going to have to be that component to it. But the vision for it was called Trials to Triumphs. And I really wanted to interview people and really showcase what they've overcome. I love a good comeback story. I think most of us do. And so that was kind of the vision of it. And so when I learned about private Facebook groups, a particular group that could show me how to do them well, it got my attention because those of you that have been watching, you know that basically we treat it like a podcast. And I've been able to do that without all the bells and whistles, so to speak, which has saved me time. I mean, there's certainly time that goes into it, promoting it, and making sure it's all that it can be from a description standpoint, and it's got to be uploaded to YouTube and all those kind of things. But I've kind of got the podcast inside, and I think that's what attracts a lot of people to it, especially the guests, because they're going to get the YouTube link and the original thumbnail with their headshot in it, along with my headshot. So I don't know if I answered your question, but it's some of that other leadership experiences and seeing a lot of people overcome difficulties in their life that said, I want to do a podcast with this, but it turned out to be a private Facebook group instead.
And you know, the interesting thing about that, Steve, is you're still getting the kind of impact that you would get if you were doing a podcast because everybody that you're interviewing is sharing their stories just like they would on your podcast. And like you said, it's an easier way to do this without having to deal with the hassle of all the technology stuff that has to go into doing a podcast. So I totally get that. When you look at kind of, where you've been, your journey and where you are now, what was there a turning point or was there a challenge that really made you truly realize what your deeper purpose was? Maybe even something that made you question your own worth before you actually rediscovered it.
Great question. And let me go back a half a step on the podcast thing. There's probably many of you listening that know this, but you can actually take a YouTube video and transfer it to all the podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple. I don't know how to do that yet. Fortunately, I have a team that helps me with all that kind of thing. So these interviews that we're doing, they could eventually end up on a actual podcast platform, many of them
I didn't know
down the
that.
road. Yeah, yeah, it's pretty exciting
Wow.
to know that
Oh, wow.
capabilities there.
Okay.
You know, to answer your question, Jerry, I think what happened was I woke up about a year and a half ago, which was my 55th birthday, and I said, Lord, there's some things that need to change. From my perspective, you probably laughed at me, but I was like, um, I need to work smarter the next 20, 25 years, if you're going to bless me of being around that long, which I hope you are. I said, I've got to work smarter and I need to come up with some ways to share my story, serve more people, that kind of thing. And that's when I started looking into public speaking, coaching. By that time, a year and a half ago, I'm trying to think back now, my memory's not what it used to be, but I'd already written a book and an ebook, so I'd kind of tapped my foot into the entrepreneur space, but basically I was looking to go further into the deep end, if that makes sense. And so um, it was going into the deeper end of the entrepreneur pool that I realized I still had a lot of mindset growth that needed to happen. These were new challenges for me. It was a space that I was not accustomed to, even though I had leadership for many, many years, going into that entrepreneur pool, it was going to require some new mindset for me. And I think just working with the various coaches that I had, different things that I was reading, it became pretty obvious to me that I had some blocks that I needed to overcome. I had some wounds that I'd been healing from for years, but I needed to continuously work on those as well. And I realized during that whole process that I have a story to tell, just like all of you. And I struggled with at many, many times in my life of feelings of unworthiness, unworthiness of love. You guys hear me say it all the time. You are worthy of love, respect, and success. But I am just really embracing that the last year and a half or so, if that really makes sense. It's a process. It's something I'm maturing in, and it's something. And Jerry, you and I talk about this all the time about mindset. You do not do mindset alone. You have to do it with a trusted partner for sure.
100%. And the interesting thing that I love that you mentioned there is you stepped forward before all your mindset stuff was taken care of. And I think that's where most people do it opposite is they say, well, I'm going to wait till all this stuff gets taken care of and then I'll move. But no, when you move and you take that step of faith, you'll work those things out as you go along. And that's exactly what you've done, which is why the You Are Worthy Network is here today, which that kind of leads me into my next question about this wonderful network that you created. What was the spark that actually led you to create this? What did you see in people's lives that you said, man, I want to be able to help them fill that?
People are looking for hope.
Mm,
It's a very, very, from my perspective, it's a very dark world right now. Wherever you land on the political arena, all the polarizing topics we have in the U.S., but not just the U.S. I mean, there's wars across the world right now,
right.
and it's just a dark, dark season. And I was like, what can I do to contribute a little bit of light? What can I do to contribute a little bit of encouragement and hope in this world right now?
Yeah.
And I think wanting to do that along with overcoming and still working on some of my own um, feelings of unworthiness, like how do I merge these things?
Mhm.
And I took it back to the podcast idea, and I said, you know what, I can do this. I can do this with help. I can do this in a private Facebook group, and let's see what God does with it. Let's just be a light. Let's
Yeah.
just be the best light that we can and leave the results up to him.
And that's always the best way to handle everything in life is, we make our plans, but God directs our steps. And, I think that because of how you are and just the transparency you have, it helps you connect to people better. Because if you were running a You Are Worthy network and you said, well, I don't have any worth problems, then there's a disconnect. But because you deal with that still and you're working through that, you're able to connect with people on a much deeper level. And you are worthy. It's a deeply personal statement. So when you think about that as you were creating the group, what does worthiness mean to you? How is that really just become the foundation of what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, a lot of us, including me, we make decisions. We think of ourselves based on the emotions that we may be going through in a given moment. And I've done that for far too long, and I've learned there's a better way.
Mhm.
Um, so I choose, even in my toughest seasons, in my toughest days, and it's hard. I've learned to incorporate gratitude into
Mhm.
what I do.
Mhm.
And I'm just not that smart. Like, I don't know about you, Jerry, but like if I have a mindset of doubt and anxiety, it's going to dominate my day. But
Mhm.
if I choose gratitude, it'll push that doubt and the anxiety out. But it's a choice I have to make. And the gratitude will accumulate. I tell people all the time that if you're having a really bad day, as silly as it may sound, get a legal pad out, your phone, whatever, and just start taking notes of what you're grateful for. And it's amazing how that'll accumulate too. Oh, I got food in the refrigerator. Oh, I have warm sheets on my bed. It's the hot water heater's working, so I got a hot shower when it's 20 degrees outside. And the next thing you know, you've got 5, 10 things without even thinking about it, and it just goes from there. But the opposite can be true too. If you don't choose gratitude and you're not on top of it, then all that other stuff can push out the gratitude, and we know what that can do. I think I missed your question in there somewhere though, didn't I?
Oh, just about what worthiness means to you, but you're leading into that. And I mean, what you just brought up, you and I could sit here, we could come back and do a whole 2 hour Zoom training just on what you just spoke about because we have such strong beliefs in that. And I know that when I first got connected with you well over a year and a half ago, one of the first things I did was watch one of your videos that you recorded on gratitude. And I am a huge believer of gratitude. You know that. And I believe everything you just said. When you have doubts and fears and anxieties and stress and all of these other things, man, it's hard to stay in that place when you start thinking about the things you're grateful for, the blessings that the Lord has brought you. It's just hard to stay there. And so gratitude makes up a whole lot of your coaching and your interviews. But why do you think that is such a cornerstone of your messages? And how do you think it has changed the way that you see relationships and purpose?
If you don't mind, I want to go back
Sure.
to worthiness for a second because I didn't really answer your question. I think we tend to, when we're emotional, we tend to put less value on ourselves. And worthiness is knowing that you're valuable even in your worst seasons,
Come on.
even in your worst days. It doesn't feel like it, right? Because it's circumstantial and it's emotional, right? But the fact is, you are loved, you are respected, and you are successful or on your way to being successful. But you're worthy of it even as you're waiting for it to happen. And that bad stuff, and trust me, I had some bad stuff happen. Some of it, my own poor choices. Some of it is just life, and it happens to all of us. But even in our worst seasons, we were worthy because God sent his son for each one of us. That makes us worthy.
I got I got some goosebumps right there. That is that is powerful. And I think worthiness and gratitude, they kind of go together, feeling worthy about yourself and feeling grateful. So that question about gratitude, why is the gratitude piece such a vital part of what you teach and how you see, relationships and purpose and all that stuff? How does that gratitude piece fit in for you?
To me, gratitude is the great equalizer. What we live in a society where everything is about everyone's highlight reels, right? I mean, if you're on social media, everybody's posting their videos, their successes. And yes, some people are vulnerable on social media, but for the most part, if you've got dreams that you're trying to pursue and they're not happening in the timetable that you'd like to see them happen, it can be discouraging watching all these other highlight reels of everybody else crushing it. And to me, it can be a trap, a competitive trap. And we don't always know, we usually don't, what that person had to do, how many wilderness seasons they had to go through to get to that highlight reel. There was a lot probably behind the scenes that they went through, probably similar to what we're going through as we're feeling feelings of competitiveness or not worthiness, watching them do that. But gratitude has a way of grounding all that. Gratitude has a way of humbling us and centering us again, calming us down, and saying, you know what? I don't have that yet, but here's what I do have. And it has a way of bringing that peace that surpasses all understanding to your heart, which really, at the end of the day, that's what you need. You need peace in your heart to be able to move on towards those goals you're working so hard for. And gratitude has a way of grounding that.
I agree with you 100%. I get up every day and just say, Lord, thank you for my house. Thank you for my car. Thank you for running water. Thank you for my son, all these things. And no matter how difficult the challenge we might be dealing with in our life, there is always something we can be grateful for. We just need to focus on it. So I'm so glad that that's a big part of your message. And, talking about being grateful, I'm sure that you have been grateful for the fact that you've had the privilege of interviewing so many entrepreneurs, so many leaders, so many overcomers. As you interview these people, what do you see as a common thread in their stories?
Yeah, well, first of all, you're right. I've been blessed to meet so many wonderful people, wonderful leaders, and it's just an honor to be able to share their story with all of you. Common thread is a couple of things. They're for the most part very hard workers, like you would imagine. Um, Resilient. They're all very resilient. They're not quitters. So when they went through, and they all, I mean, every one of them, if you've watched any of the interviews at all, I always ask them some variation of the question. Okay, you've written this book, you spoke on this stage, you have this coaching program, you've reached all these highlights that we were just talking about earlier. But what makes them relatable to the viewer is they all went through a season of unworthiness.
Right.
They all did. And some of them describe a season. Some of them, a couple of interviews that I've done recently, they're like, are you kidding? A season? I battle that every week. And I appreciate
Right.
that authenticity
Right.
because that's what all of you, I believe, resonate with because that's being human. And we all have those feelings like that at times. So I would say they're all hardworking, they're all resilient, and they all were honest about those difficult seasons they were in. And many of them, their faith got them through.
That's a big one, right? That's a big one. It's also a big deal when you realize you're not alone. Because when you have those feelings of unworthiness, you feel like you're on an island all by yourself, just stranded out there. And you realize it happens to more people than you actually think. And I think that when people come on to the network and they're totally honest and raw and transparent, I think that's a beautiful thing because that's how people connect with their stories is when they're real and raw. And so when you look at what you're creating, what we're all building here in the You Are Worthy Network, um, you know, what kind of culture do you want to have here? What kind of feelings do you want people to experience when they're here as part of the network?
I want folks to watch an interview and walk away from that saying, wow, that gave me hope. What that guest just shared, if they can get through that, I can get through what I'm going through. If they had to struggle all those different ways to achieve the success that they have now, I can take a small step today too. If so, so that's the big picture. I always say 30,000 feet. If it gives them the courage to take one more step towards their dreams, that's what I hope the interviews do. And if there's somebody watching that is just in a really dark place, feels hopeless, if they can have just a little shot of hope from watching one of our interviews, then that's the goal. There's I know we'll get to it later, but there's plans for the future. But the one-on-one interviews will always be the bread and butter of the network because it's all about serving you guys. And I would also say, in addition to that, don't be hesitant to reach out to me for an interview. If you're thinking, well, gosh, I don't have the success that that person had, or I don't have the resume that these people have that Steve's having on, don't let that intimidate you at all. I want to interview you as well, wherever you're at in your season of life, because I want to showcase what's going on in your life because your story's not over yet.
I love that your story's not over yet. And one of the things, Steve, that I teach people all the time is people will applaud your success, but they will connect with your struggle. And that's what you're doing here is you're giving those people, like you said, someone who's in a dark place who thinks, well, what's left for me to talk about? And then they hear a story or they hear something somebody says and they go, wow, if they can, so can I. And you alluded to this in your previous answer about the bigger picture. The interviews are always the centerpiece, but what's next for the You Are Worthy Network? Are there projects? Are there big dreams on the horizon that you have? What's the next level that you see for the You Are Worthy Network?
Mm. I'll answer some of that and I won't answer some of that because I like to keep some things out there, but like way down the road, we've got some super exciting things in the works. Let's just say it would involve those that want to meeting in person. I'll just leave that there. But what we're working on in the immediate future, and I had a post about this a few weeks ago. If you didn't see it, what we're working on in the immediate future is having roundtable discussions. And we actually have our panel lined up for the first one. Actually, Jerry's going to be one of them. And we've got Jerry and three others that I'm going to ask questions to on embracing your worth. So you're going to want to stay tuned to that. We don't have a date yet, as you might imagine. Trying to work out five busy people's schedules is not an easy thing, but we will get it done. And then I'd like to move into having those roundtables at least once a month. And then I'm looking into some other things that might involve, like, just for example, Worthy Wednesdays, where I make myself available on Wednesdays for about an hour to all of you. So there's some other things, maybe some networking type events also. So the future is definitely bright for the network.
I love that. And I love how you keep some of that behind the veil right now, but tease just enough so that people are going, hey, did you say in person?
Right, right.
So I love that. And Steve, it is so just great for the community here to get to know you. And I hope that through this process of interviewing you today, that they know a little bit more about you, your heart, your passion, what this is all about. And so if you could give us one final like thought, what's a daily habit or a daily mindset practice that helps you stay grounded and connected to your purpose that might be able to help the people in the audience?
Well, I was listening to you when you were saying that you thank God for your house and all the different things that you thank God for every day. The humorous side to that is I do the same thing. I'm at that age where I do that right after I go to the bathroom first thing in the morning. Gotta take care of first things first, right? I slept through the night, which I'm grateful for. But no. Um, it really does start with gratitude in my times with the Lord in the morning before I leave the house and go out that door. And it's usually to the gym because I go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week. I don't want to encounter what's out there before I filled myself up with God, reading something in Scripture, having some time to pray. That's me. I do try to incorporate reading something on mindset along with my scriptural readings. I also try to intentionally focus on not just where I'm at, but in this works in conjunction with prayer. Lord, where are you taking me? I am your servant. Take me where you want me to go. Who do you want me to serve? Who do you want me to spread the word with? Who do you want me to show hope? So it all kind of works together, but it's really having a mindset of I've not arrived yet by a long shot, but I'm also grateful for how far he's brought me. I love that quote. There's a reason why your front windshield is larger than your rear view mirror. I love that saying because if we're still alive today, and if you're watching today, that's you, right? Then again, to reiterate, God's not done with our story yet. And that difficult season that you've experienced, it's for a reason. It's not going to be wasted. You've heard it said that your test is your testimony. That's going to be to help a lot of people and to serve a lot of people. And that's really my practice in the mornings.
And I love that. And I'm, like you, very much a faith-filled person, and I have to do the exact same thing. Always put God in there before the world comes in and do that stuff. And I think that is so vitally important. And there might be some people that are either listening to this live or they'll hear the recording of this that even though we've been talking about this great network, they may still feel deep, deep, deep inside that they're just not worthy. So if you could look into the camera at these people directly, what would you tell them right now?
First thing I would tell you is I'm sorry you're feeling that way. I understand that when you feel that way, it usually comes from an incident or it comes from disappointment. or it comes from a treacherous background. And I want you to know that God loves you, that you are valuable, you are cared about, there is hope, and you are worthy. Sorry for where you're at, sorry what you've been through, but God's not done with you, and you are valuable and worthy, and we all appreciate you.
Wow. And this is the right place for you to be
Mm,
here
so
in the
true.
You Are Worthy Network. Well, my brother, it has been truly an honor to be the one to interview you. I just appreciate your openness, your honesty. I'm sure everyone listening to this does. I know that your words, the things that you've shared today, have truly encouraged and inspired people in so many different ways. And before we wrap up, I just want to say, on behalf of all of us, how grateful we are for your leadership and your heart, because it's those two things that have brought us all together. And we just thank you for all you do and for the time you put into this network. And we're all here to support you and to support everyone that's here, because together we're going to grow something quite amazing. And we're going to be a place of hope where people can come and finally feel that I'm with my tribe, I'm with my people. And so thank you, Steve, on behalf of all of us in the network for leading the way and setting the path for all of us to follow. You are awesome, my brother.
Jerry, I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time to do this. Super appreciative of your friendship. I appreciate each one of you. The network is about community. It's about all of us, and God has does an amazing thing in growing our network to 2,500 people in a short amount of time. And I appreciate each one of you. Thank you so much.
Yep. And to every one of you that's watching here, thank all of you for being part of this growing community. So we just
Yes, sir.
encourage you, keep showing up, keep sharing gratitude, and keep reminding yourself and other people around you that you are worthy of love, respect, and success. Thanks for tuning in to this great interview, and we look forward to seeing you in our next interview in the network.